the first kind of interesting experiment that we can run in Google Ads right now, which is a max conversions bidding test, or really testing any kind of bidding strategy against your original one. So, Chris, I think we should break it down into why we should do this experiment, or why it could be helpful, and then maybe talk about the goals that you should be looking for. So, why should someone do a bidding experiment? Why would you do a bidding style experiment?
Right. So let's start with a broad idea. Let's say automated versus manual, or manual to automated, back and forth, whatever, vice versa. So
Okay.
the reason for me when it comes to bidding is, if you go from manual to automated, I don't care which one, whether it's max clicks or max conversions, there is a point where you are taking your foot off the gas pedal. You no longer have control on bids. You no longer have control on the engine that's running the placement of your keywords and things like that. And you don't actually know what to expect. You don't actually know how the system's going to react, how quickly it's going to react. Jason, you and I, coined the phrase the ramp up. I think particularly you were really adamant about there is a ramp up time, and that is still just as true now. Even though the AI system is smarter, there is absolutely a ramp up. So really, it's the unknown. It's the fact that there is an unknown. Why use it for bidding? And because if you go from manual to automated, automated to manual, whatever strategy, there's an unknown factor, and at least you can minimize that. You might be very disappointed when you turn it on that, oh, wow, I'm not spending all the budget, or what? Oh, wow, the CPC is way too high. This is disappointing, or it's not getting conversions at all, or something like that.
Yeah, if you're unhappy with your manual bids, and like you just feel like you're out of your depth and you're not getting any traffic, it's not costing you anything to go to an automated strategy. You're not going to lose anything because you're not getting any traffic. But if you are okay with what you currently have in place a little bit, and you don't want to lose it, then that is the reason to set up an experiment. If you're thinking about going to a different bidding style, or you want to see what it does, it's to not lose what you currently have. And that works both ways, Chris. If you're going from manual bids to automated, you don't want to lose all the ad group and keyword bids that you have in place if you like the way they're running and you're okay with them. And then going from automated to manual, just a pure change like that, you don't want to lose like what the system has learned running your bids for as long as it's been running. You don't want to go back into a learning phase, and you don't want to rock the boat before seeing that manual can do a lot better. And I think that pretty much applies. The reason why you would do a bidding experiment, it applies to whether it's manual to automated or automated to automated. Because if you go from like max conversions to max clicks, if you like what you're doing with max conversions enough and you don't want to lose it, well, that's reason enough to set up an experiment, as opposed to just changing your bid strategy. So in terms of most consequential actions inside of your Google Ads account, I think adding broad keywords is definitely up there, but I also think changing your bidding strategy is very, very much up there. And when you think about experiments, Chris, you think it's fair to say that like this is one of the major reasons you would run an experiment, to not lose what you're doing with your current bidding strategy?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's number one on the list because it really is the most important. Number two, number three, number four. I don't know if there's always more value or more importance on it, but this is absolutely number one for a reason. It is the number one reason of all the times I've launched an experiment. It typically has to do with bidding strategy by far.
And what are you, just curious, like what usually happens? Are you usually proven right where you like, see, my manual bids work better, or are you like, wow, this automated strategy is doing great? Or what do you usually get out of that? And by the way, how do you usually do it? Do you do 50-50s? Do you do 80-20s? What's your split?
Okay, so split wise, I am 95% of the time 50-50. The only time I don't do 50-50 is whenever I have a lot of risk, and there, I'm not necessarily unhappy with something, but I want to try it and minimize something. For example, I had a client that was spending a lot of money, very important time of the year for them, really kind of running on a thin line here of performance. And I did like a 20/80. I just want to see, we have plenty of budget, high spend, so I don't need 50/50. I can easily see plenty with just 80/20, something like that. So that's usually the case. 50/50 is very typical for me. Most of the time when I run experiments, it's almost, I'm getting pretty good at predicting it. I don't run experiments expecting a whole lot of good whenever there are accounts that fall in the gray area for Google. Now, it's hard to voice it, but Jason, I know what I mean. I'm talking about things that Google doesn't know very well, stuff that falls into the cracks between industries, business to business kind of things. It's not this industry or this industry. It's the one right in between. They sell to the sellers. It's that kind of stuff that's not very clear.
Yeah, or like a new software product that's offering a service that traditionally humans have done, and
right,
no one would ever think of a software for that.
Something that rides in the gray area, not very well discovered or known. Things like that does not typically do very well. But usually for things that are very common, household services, e-commerce, things like that, where there's lots of search out there, plenty of signals and triggers, and an understanding of the AI system of how it works, tends to do quite well. So I'd say that's, if I were to give a blanket idea of my experience, I would say that it's fairly predictable at this point. It's not a flawless system. It always has limitations.
Yeah. Now, when you're running a bidding strategy experiment, what are the goals? My goals are more conversions and or a lower cost per conversion. I guess you could argue more volume, but what do you think about those goals?
I actually, if I understand it correctly, I don't think the goals affect the performance or affect anything at all. The only reason that
just your own goals to make a decision,
right. It's just so that it can put that chart up there and tell you your expectations are being met or not being met. Essentially, that's all it is.
Yeah, what you're referring to is when you set up an experiment, they ask you for your two goals of what you're trying to look for, and they say, but you'll also see other data, but they'll highlight these goals that you wanted to see data on. But I like that they do that because it gets the mind kind of thinking on why am I running this experiment? What should I be looking for here? So the question is, what are you looking for when you run up a bidding strategy? When you run a bidding strategy experiment, what your own personal goals, what are you trying to do when you do that? Is it more conversions, lower cost per conversion, basically?
I mean, pretty much every single experiment is either going to be, I want a better cost per conversion, or I want a better return on ad spend, or conversion value over cost. That's the only reason that I ever run an experiment. Very rarely would I run something and just hope for more clicks. I might be going after, very rarely might I be going after a max clicks compared to manual bids kind of thing, where I'm just hoping to get more click volume. I have some accounts like that, but most of the time it's just based on conversions. I mean, that's where the vast majority of my experiments are based.